right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Watch. I'm Chris, and I am joined today by Simon from Watch the Time, and so excited to be bringing you another episode of this. And basically in Beyond the Watch, what I try and do is interview or just chat, not an interview, chat with some of my favorite YouTube content creators, and we'll shoot the gap for a bit, and then try and get to know Simon a bit more beyond the watch. It is going to be watch related at the beginning, because most of the questions that come in, there's a handful that come in, they're all watch related. We do watch channels, that's to be expected. And then we'll get to beyond the watch with just me just chatting basically, and getting to know Simon a bit more. So from Watch the Time, how many subscribers now? You're doing well, man.
I don't know. Coming up to, I think, 2,400 almost.
Nicely
not far off.
Nicely done. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed to Simon's channel, I have no doubt, like, I'm half of that, so most of my subscribers will be subscribed to you. But if by chance you haven't subscribed to Simon, if by chance you haven't subscribed to Simon, go check him out, and I'll leave a link for his YouTube in the description. And thanks for doing that. So we've been trying to do this for a couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago, Simon come down with a virus that I'm going to call the Queen's Biscuit. and then last week was the Queen's Jubilee celebration. So you got busy with family and whatnot. So what was that like? Did you guys go to London or something for the festivities, or did they all over England? I'm sure they had a bunch of celebrations.
Yeah, there was a lot going on from the Thursday to the Sunday, because it was 70 years in as Queen, which is quite phenomenal, because some people don't even live for 70 years. So they did a lot of celebrations from the Thursday through to the Sunday. Which it was nice. I went to a couple of street parties. There was one on my road. There was one on my mother-in-law's that we went to. It was nice. It was a nice sense of community. I don't know what it's like in Canada, but nowadays in the UK, people don't really tend to talk to each other. People tend to keep their distance, and it's not like it was back in the day when, like, my parents and grandparents, there was a lot more engaging with their neighbours. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
there was a comedian actually that Sebastian Maniscalco. Have you ever heard of him? Sebastian Maniscalco. He's an American comedian, but he does an entire bit on the fact that, like, back when you grew up, so when you and I grew up, your mom used to have like a cake that she put in the freezer, and it was just for guests when they came, and you weren't to touch that cake. And he went on about how she made preparations for having guests come over, because that's kind of what happened. People would go visit each other. And then he said, "Now when your doorbell rings," and then he went into this whole, like, what the F is going on? Who's here? Hide, get under the couch. It's like, but it's totally true. Like, when my door knocks, the first thing I think is, who the heck is that? And what do they want?
Yeah.
It's totally opposite.
It's kind of the way things have gone, though, isn't it? And I think also what doesn't sort of help is that most of us are so busy. We live such busy lives where you're working full time, you've got a family. With us, we've got our channels that we also run and stuff. It doesn't leave a lot of time, does it? So oftentimes you get caught up and you don't even see the people you want to see, let alone people you don't. So, so it was nice, though. It was like a long weekend. People got a chance to sort of just relax and stuff. It was cool. It was like I said, it was something that you don't see very often. So it was nice to sort of try and absorb as much of it as possible.
Yeah, and so now these street parties or whatever, like, they were in your community, like there was festivities that were planned in your community. You didn't have to, like, travel for, some big thing or whatever if you didn't want to.
You could obviously. I don't know if you saw some of the celebrations in central London, like Buckingham Palace and Hyde Park and all that. Yeah, it was mad. It was like millions of people had gone there to celebrate and stuff, but. We just kept it a bit more low key. We had like one on our street and one on my mother-in-law's street, and it was cool. It was nice. A bit too much alcohol was consumed, but it was nice to sort of just chill and talk to people. Do you know what I mean? Something that you don't often get a chance to do. So it was quite nice. So yeah, it was a good weekend. Like I said, I was still recovering from the infection I had, so it was still a little bit tricky, but yeah, it was nice.
That's great. Yeah, the Queen's Biscuit. That's what we're going to call it.
The Queen's Biscuit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a terrible. It's worse. It's worse than COVID.
Honestly, it sounds like a euphemism, but I can't think of what. I'm trying to work out what it could be, but it sounds quality anyway.
Well, that's the story, and stick to it. So here's what we're going to do. Okay, for a couple minutes, I'm going to compliment you. And then for the next 45 minutes, I'm going to rip you a new one. Okay, how's that?
That sounds. No. To be honest, mate, basically that sounds like my life.
No, we got some questions that come in, but here's the compliment. And I've gotten to know you over the last year and a bit. Let's say. We've chatted a few times by video chat. Obviously, I've watched your channel quite religiously, if you will, comment back and forth and doing that. And a couple of stories that I want to share that speak to me about the kind of person that you are, and hence what I'm going to compliment you on before. I'm not going to rip you a new one.
So, mate, no worries.
So there was a watch. I'm not going to mention the watch. That was this was probably a year ago. So I'm not going to mention the watch because it'll bring in some other elements, but that everyone was raving about. And it was circulating amongst channels, and no one had anything but, salivating over this thing and blah, 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 blah. And then you had it. And so I watched your video. And you had some honest critique and like feedback. And then at the end of the video where you do your pants and your pucka and then would I recommend this watch, you said, you know what, guys, I can't recommend this watch for these reasons. And then through that, a former acquaintance of ours, let's just leave it at that. He, they went, a bit ape shit about the fact that you didn't say, and I'm like, well, I watched the video and he was just being honest and shared what he felt. And then fast forward, I don't know how long later, but not that long ago, you'll remember this conversation that we had when I was doing the giveaway, and I had you jump through a hoop, light yourself on fire, and then roll on the ground and extinguish yourself before you could get the prize. Like it was like, and here I'm thinking this is fantastic, and then I get your feedback, Average Joe's feedback, and Schwartz's feedback, and but you had said something at that because I had this idea of rewarding my subscribers. If you subscribe for 8 months, you get 8 extra entries, this and that, the other thing. And you said something to me that just gobsmacked me, which was, positive discrimination is still discrimination. And I was like, frig. And so my point being is, you seem to me, through all of my interactions with you, and I think why a lot of people appreciate what you do, you're kind of a man of truth, honesty, integrity, and if you don't like something, you'll say it. If you like something, you'll say it. What you see is what you get. So I really wanted to say, thank you, because, I know when I watch you, and you're talking about a watch, it's not like when we do these reviews, we're looking for bad things or good things. We're just looking at it and saying, but beyond the watch, you seem to be that kind of a person. So I'm right, aren't I?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I recall the times you're talking about and stuff. And yeah, I know the thing is, I do feel like sometimes with people, I've said this before in my reviews as well. My opinion is only my opinion. It doesn't mean it's going to be someone else's. Do you understand what I mean? But That's why I've got my own channel, so I can sort of put things out there that I feel. And the thing is, for me, I'll always keep it 100. Do you know what I mean? It's not about, I won't ever be too critical of someone. I've said this before, like, I respect anyone that puts their money out there to make a watch, because you got to commend them. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It takes a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. So I wouldn't just get a brand in and bash them anyway. But I feel like for me, I'm just going to be honest. If, like I say, people disagree with me, that's fine. I really don't mind. Like, and I like it when sometimes people disagree with me, because then I get a difference of opinion as well. Do you know what I mean? But I feel like sometimes people just get a bit too precious about one person's opinion. We haven't always got to agree, do we?
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we can have a conversation on a watch and we can have a difference of opinion on it, but that's actually quite refreshing, rather than us always sharing the same opinion. Otherwise, we might as well just have one YouTube channel where it does a watch review if we're all going to say the same thing. Do you understand what I mean?
I do, absolutely.
You don't need all these other channels. You might as well. But yeah, so for me, I try and be as honest as possible through certain things that I've gone through since I've been in the watch community. I've taken a step back from a lot of things, a lot of people, just because I find in life sometimes people are not who they portray themselves to be. But that's life, isn't it? You're going to get that everywhere.
Yeah.
But there's some good people. There's some good people in here as well. So, and I've made some friends here, and there's some real cool people, and there's some really good channels out there. Some of them who don't actually really get as much exposure as they deserve, because the algorithms on YouTube are just ridiculous. Like you've kind of got to put a video out at the same time with a thumbnail, then sort of tap your head, rub your stomach, and all this other stuff at the same time, and see what happens. Like, it's insane. So,
yeah, that's true. And as far as, I still don't know much about it, as far as like, because some things you do, you hear that you do this, make your thumbnails better, or just whatever. At the end of the day, it's sometimes the luck of the draw. I'm surprised still by what's happened with my channel, and I'm not doing anything Chris, overly different.
To be honest, as to sort of bring it back to you, I feel like with you, people could just tell that you're just a good bloke. I feel like that comes across on camera, and I remember prior to even talking to you in private, when I spoke to you in private, you were the person I thought you was on camera, and I quite like the fact that you're not different.
Yeah,
I feel like because if you see different sides to someone too often, you start questioning who someone is.
Right.
Because at some point, you need to be quite consistent with who you are as an individual. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And with you, I feel like you are. And but for the times we've spoken, you've always been you, and I like that. I like to know what I'm getting with people, because I like to think that people do with me. Yeah. If you talk to me, then if we speak now, we're cool. We'll be cool tomorrow, and so on and so forth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So this part of you that is, that values kind of the honesty, the integrity, the, be who you are at all times, that sort of a thing. Is that a product of like the way your parents raised you, or is it something that's happened in, just kind of some life experience? That like where do you get that? Where do you get that from?
I think we're all a product of our environments, aren't we? So, depending on where, like I was brought up in London, parts of London which are quite rough at times, and you become an individual. And I feel like you've either got to be quite hard, or it's like sink or swim, isn't it? I'm sure it's the same in parts of Canada, set parts of America, and everywhere else. So I think you've got to become someone who knows your mind. If you don't know your mind, you can just get lost in everything because you don't know what you stand for. You can just become a little bit of a lost soul. Do you know what I mean? You don't know really what you're doing, and you're sort of following other people, but you don't really form your own identity. Whereas for me, I've always been someone who knows what I'm about. I know who I am.
Yeah.
And for me,
that's exactly how I would say it. Yeah, that's what strikes me about you is like you get, when you talk to Simon, like, and it didn't surprise me when you said, that's positive discrimination, even if it is positive. And I'm just like, son of a bitch, he's right. But at the end of the day, I hung up from that phone call and I went, these guys have said something valuable to me. And, for the next giveaway that I did, it was super easy, and I took the feedback and whatnot. But it was the honesty, like the direct, I would say that you're a direct person. I mean, you're going to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is just the way I've read you, that even if it's potentially, it's not like you're out to hurt people's feelings, but you're not going to sacrifice the truth for someone's feelings. Is that true?
No, to be honest, I feel like, if you was to speak to my family and my friends, they would tell you that I'm very honest. But it's not at a point to be sort of controversial. It's just, I feel like if you care about someone, you owe it to them to be honest. I'm not going to be one of them people that just blow smoke I'll tell you what I think. And the thing is, I won't just say it to you. If you want me, if you ask for my opinion, then you've engaged with me, and then I'm going to tell you what I think.
Yes.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, entirely.
Then you both.
Entirely. I always say to people, don't ask me a question you don't want an honest answer for.
100%.
Because if you ask me a question, I'll give you an honest answer. So it's like,
and that's how it should be.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how it should be. I feel like there's too many people that would just tell you what you want to hear. And I feel like as humans, I don't feel like you grow from that at all.
No.
I feel like the only time I've grown in my life is when I've made mistakes or people have held me to account and they told me things, because that's made me think about it and want to do better next time. I feel like if you just get told everything you want to hear all the time, then there's no growth taking place. They always say that you learn more from a loss than you do a win, because it makes you sort of reflect and want to do things better and differently, doesn't it? So
yeah, for sure, I think so too. And for me, the most valuable, I guess, lessons or things that I've taken in life have been from sometimes when people told me the truth, even though they knew, the expression, the truth hurts. Sometimes it does. But
it does, 100%.
But it's sometimes it's necessary, because there's either you can just go with the flow, and if the truth isn't spoken, other people won't have opportunity to grow either. And then you can get to on the kind of the worst scale, you can enable some people's behavior.
100%. I think that's a great point.
Telling the truth.
And the thing is, you end up with friends that you're just like, oh, that's just them. When really it's not just them, is it? They need to be held to account for what they're saying and what they're doing. I feel like it's like anything. I feel like it's about taking ownership of what you do and being accountable for what you do, and not just trying to blame other people for all your shortcomings. Because I feel like it's easy to do that, innit? We can all say, I didn't get the job because that person didn't like me, or when realistically you probably weren't the person for the job because you've not grown enough to put yourself in a position where you're probably suitable for doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we have already gotten beyond the watch a little bit. This is awesome. And by the way, this is what I was hoping this would be. But we're going to get to some of these questions which are watch related. This is from Watch Rolling, who I kept calling Watch Trolling in the last one that we did. So Watch Rolling, whoever you are, you will affectionately be known to me as Watch Trolling from now on. So who is Watch Rolling? What's his name? Do you know the name?
Jason. Jason. Yeah, I know Jason. Jason's a really good bloke.
He's a good bloke too.
He's one of the good people.
Watch Trolling is Jason. Sorry, Jason. But he says, what's one watch that you reviewed that absolutely blew you away?
Wow. There's been a few, to be honest.
What's the first one that comes to mind?
Probably the Van Banner, because I wanted. Obviously, they released the Parking Master, and I think I said to you, it felt like the one that kind of got away, because I saw it and I was like, that thing is gorgeous. Like, there was so many parts to it that were just well designed and stuff. And then they brought out their AO, and I just liked the look of it. It was well spec'd, it was clean looking, and I got it, and it's a real favorite in my collection. I do really like it. I spoke to LV a couple of times, and LV as well, guys. He's the main man at Van Banner. We've had many conversations back and forward, and he's a really cool guy, really humble bloke. And again, like I kind of, for me now, in terms of, as you know, I do a lot of Aliexpress watches, and I do some high street brands and stuff. And with the micro brands, I only really want to feature micro brands that I believe them and I buy into what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't just want to feature anything on the channel. That's just my perspective. But LV is a passionate guy, and I can really see Van Banner doing some great things.
Yeah.
I can see them really kicking on. There are two watches they put out that I know of are amazing. Like the Parking Master and the AO. They're like two watches that would fit in anyone's collection.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is such a nice guy. And him and I have conversed back and forth. And he actually helped me to understand. One of the things that I've been trying to kind of grow and understand is the cost of, a watch. And from his perspective, like, he didn't shed light on absolutely everything, but he shed enough light on some things for me to understand that, you know, there's a reason why you can buy a watch from Aliexpress for, you know, 70 quid or just over 115 Canadian or whatever, and why the micro brand watch is twice that, if not more. There's like what I was blown away by, you know, the money that is required to produce a watch. So as you said earlier, like when you said earlier, like you gotta hands down give out respect to anyone that's actually producing one on their own, because it's a huge investment, and you know, and it's a gamble in a way, because you just,
of course it is.
Yeah.
You're rolling the dice a little bit, and you've really got to take a leap of faith. And all these people that do it, I've got a huge amount of respect, and that's why for me, I won't ever feature a watch on the channel where I just bash it, because I just don't think that's cool. I won't do any videos that are like clickbait and stuff. I won't do that, because I just don't think it's fair to try and get one over on a company when they put so much time and effort. Whether you appreciate the watch or not, that's immaterial. At the end of the day, they put so much time, money, and effort into that watch that you just got to respect the hustle a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, because my philosophy has been, you know, if there's something like grossly wrong with the watch, most of them that have sent me a watch value the honest feedback and want honest feedback. So the latest one I did, the crown was too small. I mean, the crown was very difficult to use, and I mentioned that. And the owner even put on this is the Gavix watch, and the owner put on a comment, "Thank you for your feedback. It helped, you know, all the critics." He said, he meant to say critiques, I'm sure. It all helps us to get better. That's awesome. Beautiful.
But that's what it's about, though, isn't it? I feel like sometimes even with anyone who produces anything, whether it be us with our channel or whether you're actually producing a tangible item, I feel like sometimes it's hard to see the wood through the trees. So I feel like sometimes it's nice to have, like they have in business, they say fresh eyes. So you get fresh eyes on something, so it gives you a different perspective on it. And you might be able to see something you can't see because you're too emotionally attached to it. So I feel like sometimes that's where reviews kind of come into their own. As long as you're not being a bit nasty about it, I feel like because in life, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could say the same thing to you in two different ways. One, you're going to be like, nice one. And the other one, you're going to want to give me a smack. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I know what you mean, yeah. My wife and I have an ongoing conversation about my tone.
I like the way you did that.
And I'm like, you know, and Seinfeld did a bit about it in his stand-up routine. If you haven't seen this and you got Netflix and you're a Seinfeld fan, if you're not a Seinfeld fan, then obviously don't bother. But he did a stand-up episode, 23 Hours to Kill, it's called. And in the last half of this routine, he talks about, you know, being married and different things that happen in married life. And he talks about the tone in his house and how his wife doesn't like the tone of his voice. And my wife and I watched it together. And we killed ourselves laughing because it's a constant conversation. It's not what you said. It's the way you said it. It's your tone. It's your tone. And I'm like, what tone? Anyway,
that's also what's cool with comedy is it's funny because it's relatable, isn't it?
Oh my goodness!
If it wasn't relatable, it wouldn't make it funny because you wouldn't be able to relate to it. So
yeah, so maybe you and your wife have this thing too, where he talks about the climate-controlled car, and he talks about the how women can do all kinds of miraculous things, childbirth, everything else like that, but if the wind is, if the air is blowing at them, they're not optimized desired temperature. It's like all hell breaks loose. And he talks about the fact that inside the car, like you're only 2 square feet apart. It's not as if, you're getting really optimal temperature to begin with in the but we've had the exact, like my wife will be driving down the road and she'll get a little too cold and she'll crank the heat up on her side. And it's just a friggin' thing that we have a lot of the time when we're driving. I'm like, that's really not going to make much of a difference for you. Like, we're in the same car. Like, I've got mine ice cold, you got yours hot. It's balancing out. Like, just leave it at the same. We'll adjust it, and then it's hilarious. You got to check that out. Everybody, check it out. 23 Hours to Kill, Seinfeld stand-up. Yeah. All right, Paul Mack. I don't know Paul Mack. Do you know Paul Mack?
I think I think he subscribes to my channel.
Yeah,
I'm sure I've had comments from.
Yeah, he says, what bargains, if you know, what bargains are currently available on the British High Street? If they are out there, Simon will know. So, what are some bargains?
In terms of on the high street, in terms of buying watches, I think Rotary. I think I spoke to you about this before. I think Rotary are a little bit underutilized because I feel like they go from one spectrum to the next. I feel like they can make watches that are a little bit substandard, if I'm honest, but then they can also produce watches that are really nice.
Yeah.
So I think Rotary are definitely one to look at. If you're looking at sort of more affordable, Loris is quite nice. I know it's not a British company. It's obviously a sister company of Seiko, but they do quite a nice affordable watches if you want to buy something on the high street. There, and obviously Casio, Casio are the kings, aren't they, in terms of affordable.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and then Omar, my man Omar, what is good? What got you into watches? What was your first watch?
Yeah, Omar from Timeless Sneakers and Watches.
Timeless Sneakers and Watches, yeah.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
So here's a funny story about that. The first time. So when we went to roll to do this video, I forgot to unmute the microphone. and then
sounds familiar.
So we went to record this one with Omar, and I called it Timeless Watches and Sneakers. And we got talking. He's like, actually, it's Timeless Sneakers and Watches. I'm like, okay, let's start over. Well, right at the beginning, it wasn't too bad. So yeah, what was your first watch, or one that you remember anyway? What got you into it?
So the one that got me sort of where we are today in terms of, because it's sort of a bug, isn't it? You might have people that have watches for years and they have one watch, and then all of a sudden they'll get a particular watch, and then they almost become collectors off the back of that one watch. That kind of, it's normally one that sort of snowballs, isn't it? For mine was a Seiko 5, which is probably the same for many people. I got a Seiko 5. I bought a Rotary on Amazon. The watch wasn't delivered, even though they said it was delivered, and it was a bit of a palaver. I had to get my money back and whatever. But Amazon, fair play to Amazon, they're normally pretty good at that sort of stuff. Their customer service is excellent. I'm not paid to say that either. And then I ended up buying a Seiko 5, and I was just transfixed. It was the first watch I really had that had an exhibition case back. And I think for a lot of people, as soon as you can see the movement, then that's it. Like literally, it's finished. It's game over. Because then you start to realize just how beautiful a watch can be, but how functional and how much years of research and stuff and all the time that goes into making it what it is.
Yeah.
It was a Seiko 5. I can't remember the model number. But it was similar to the SNKL 23. It was a black dial one.
Okay, a little 38 mil then, probably, or?
Yeah. It was really nice. It's long gone. I don't know where it is, but I mean, since then it's just gone crazy. I kind of how many watches do you have in your collection now, Chris? I always like to gauge where I'm at in terms of if I'm doing it right or wrong.
It's ridiculous. It's no, it is. We'll chat about. I'd really after we'll chat about some just practical watch collecting and YouTube stuff, because at first, like when I decided I wanted to do a YouTube channel, problem number one is you need content, right? So I was buying what I could find and what I could afford. And what I liked. I mean, if I saw something, it first had to appeal to me visually. I knew, obviously, I knew nothing about the watch leading up to getting it or whatever, but it had to appeal to me visually, or I would watch other YouTube channels, see what they're getting in, and Aliexpress was obviously a rabbit hole. I have a bunch of Pagani's. I probably have close to 50 watches. How many do you have? Yeah,
it's easy done though. In fairness, it becomes, for me, I have to be quite strict on myself that because oftentimes my main collection is quite separate to watches I get in for review.
Yeah.
So but every so often the one I get in for review just sort of blows my socks off, and I end up keeping it.
Yep.
But then what I'll tend to do is I'll sell one that I've got, because I don't like to let my collection get too big, because even now I don't wear the watches as much as I would like, and I've got about 26, 27 watches.
Yeah.
And it's trying to rotate them and and the thing is, I enjoy wearing my own watches. When I put my own watch on, I'm like, you remember why it's in your collection.
Yeah.
Do you know
so
what I mean?
The way I've done it is I've got a goal now and I'm going to be doing a video on this soon, but a goal now to get a luxury watch.
Oh, nice.
Now,
what have you got in mind?
The one I've vacillated. So the next question from Miguel is, what is your Grail watch? So I'll talk a bit about that for me right now. But yeah, what I do is I've got a box now. I used to have a box of 12. That was like my top box, then a bottom box. Now I've kind of made a box of 24, and those are the watches I wear. I don't wear anything else in those. So I'm basically going to sell half of my collection, if not more, because I do want to work towards buying like a luxury timepiece. I'm at the point now where I feel like I want one and I'm comfortable with it. So I'll tell you what it's going to be and why. What's your Grail watch? That was a question, Miguel, from SoCal Watch Reviews. Shout out to Miguel.
Thanks,
what's your Grail watch?
So mine has been, and I can imagine it being my Grail for a little while, is an Omega Seamaster, particularly the blue coaxial one. I love that watch. It's been one that...
Is that with the wave pattern in the dial?
Yeah, the wave pattern. It's got I think it's a ceramic dial. I think they use, and it's like a wave on it. And it looks stunning. And the thing is, I think the thing is, obviously, the funny thing about watch collecting, as you'll know, is how much price changes in terms of, and how much what you're okay to pay changes. Because when you first get into watches, you think 50 to $100, you're like, okay, I can live with that. That's not bad. I'll buy that watch. It's going to be a nice watch. And then the more you understand about watches, the more that price continues to creep up. And the more you're kind of comfortable with what you're paying for these watches. But for me, I feel like I only want to own one of like piece like that. Not that I can afford anymore anyway, but because I want to have that one piece that just is a little bit of a standalone. I've got I think I said before, I got my Hamilton Khaki King, the champagne dial. And that was one that I wanted for a while. It's not as anywhere near as expensive.
Yeah.
But for me, it was still a little bit of change. Do you know what I mean? For a watch. So so I bought that and I loved it. And I feel like sometimes the longer you want something, the more it means when you get it. Do you know what I mean? Rather than being in a position to just get whatever you want when you want, because then the desire doesn't come into it. Do you know what I mean? When you desire something for a while, you get it and it's like, wow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So mine's the Omega Seamaster. I also like a couple of Rollies as well, but I do like Omega, man. I kind of like what the sort of watches they make.
Yeah.
And then they're also more accessible, because obviously there's the whole problem with getting on the Rolex secondhand market and the prices. And
it's ridiculous.
It's just become a little bit dirty in terms of trying to get yourself a decent watch from Rolex, and you end up paying more money secondhand than you do if you bought it new, and it just becomes a whole thing.
Yeah. For me, I vacillated between getting a Breitling Navitimer, B100 series or B101, with the 3 subdials and the slide rule bezel. Rotary actually makes a really nice homage of that one. Like
they do, yeah.
The one I found anyway is like, wow, this one is nice. But then, like that's like 10 grand. So then I went,
a lot of money.
And I went from that to Breitling Super Ocean, which I would still like to get. And that's 5,000, give or take, and that's Canadian dollars. So that's but I've now changed to...
So what's that in English? That's about £250 then, is it?
Yeah, no kidding. It's ridiculous. A Great British Pound is worth $1. I think it's like $1.75 Canadian.
Is that the conversion? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I pay another 75% if I were to buy something in a Great British Pound. Yeah. And in the United States, the U.S. dollar is about $1. Usually goes between $1.28 and $1.35. So it's like an extra 30 to 35% extra for U.S., but it's like 70+% for Great British Pound. It's like
That's quite a big difference as well, isn't it? When you're actually factoring.
Well, here's so the Christopher Ward that I had in the channel, it's listed on the website as, I think it's 1900 GBP, and when you click on the button for Canadian price, it's just under $3,100. Just to give you an idea. But my watch is I've settled on for two reasons. One, it's definitely more attainable. And I have a local jeweler that actually carries them, because I'm always a little bit leery about buying a watch of that expense online. Like, that just kind of creeps me out. Honestly, I want to be able to see the watch, pay for it, and have it, rather than pay for it and go, oh God, when is it coming? Or that. So
I know. Have you seen with eBay? They do like an authentication service now where. But for me, like you, if I'm spending upwards of sort of 2 bags plus, I'm not looking to get it like that. I want to be in the shop. I want to sit down with you. I want to have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
I want to
exactly
kick the you know what a little bit, because I don't feel comfortable past. That's a lot of money, isn't it? Like, the thing is, unless when you work for your money, you just want to swan it anyway. I don't. I want to know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And I want to know I'm getting what I'm supposed to be getting.
Yeah, and there's nightmare stories out there, and with that whole fiasco with Nico and Ocean and
exactly that.
Like, but mine's gonna be a Tudor Black Bay.
Not great. It's a great choice, man.
Black dial with the blue bezel. I'll put a picture up maybe when I edit this video or whatever, and I'll send it to you.
Nice.
And my local jeweler has it. And it's just under 5,000 retail with the bracelet.
Okay.
So it's going to take me a couple years, and that's kind of why I want to parse down my collection as well, and keep. I love the watches that I have, are in the 24, and that might get shrunk down to 12, and then I sell everything else, and then I go for I'm going for it. I definitely want to. Now, I might end up getting the Breitling, but I have to go somewhere to get it. I'm not going to buy it online. I'm not going to buy the Tudor online. I'm not that size of a transaction. It's just, I'm not comfortable. Other people might be, and they might have good experiences doing it, but it's just not something I'm comfortable with. And for me to get a Breitling, I'd have to go to Toronto probably, which is a few hours away from me.
That's fine. Like, at the end of the day, you have what you choose to do with your money is up to you, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
And the thing is, I would be of the same mind, mate. When I buy my watch, I'm gonna go to a proper AD. I'm gonna look it over. And
you would have to probably go to London for that, or?
Yeah, so I live not far from. To get into central London will probably take me about 20 minutes, half an hour, anyways.
Okay.
So I'll go in there, and like I said, it's gonna be a whole experience, isn't it? When you eventually go, and because the thing is, you'll go in there and you'll look at them probably beforehand anyway. And when you go in, you'll probably know more about the watch than the person sending it to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but it's going to be a whole thing, isn't it? And I think everyone looks forward. I've seen videos of people where they build up to get their Grail watch, and they get it, and it must be a great experience, because all the time and research and stuff that's gone into buying that piece.
Yeah.
And now you finally got it on your wrist. Do you know what I mean? Which is great.
And the funny thing is,
Black Bay is a great option as well.
Yeah, the funny thing is about the Tudor is when I first I got a watch that was, I guess the handset was a homage part of a Tudor. Like, it had the snowflake hour hand, and it was a Watch Gang watch. I got it on one of their deal wheels, and I got it in. I looked at it and went, "Oh, that is just the ugliest thing I've ever seen." The Tudor snowflake hand. I think it's the stupidest looking, but ugliest friggin' thing I've ever seen. Now I love it because of how unique and different it is. It's just, I've changed, right? And, the fact that Rolex it kind of makes them, if you will, or they're a subsidiary of Rolex, but they're more attainable and affordable. And, whether or not they hold their value isn't something that I'm overly worried about. If it's a watch I want, I just get it.
I'd be. The thing is, sometimes it's nice to buy something as an investment, but sometimes it's nice to buy something because you want it, and you want it that bad that you put because life's too short, isn't it? Life is too short to. We can all say, what ifs and stuff. But I think sometimes you got to treat yourself. You work hard.
Yeah.
There's worse things you could be spending money on, isn't there? So
yes. So here's a joke. Speaking of worse things, here's a joke. I told my chiropractor. I kind of tell everybody, and it relates to the fact that I'm a minister a little bit. But so I kind of joke with my wife that when I'm 50, and getting the midlife thing, I'm gonna get a Harley and a hooker.
In what order?
Okay, but here's the joke part of it, right? So I say this to my chiropractor the other day, and I said, but I can't do that. He says, yeah. He says, yeah, it just wouldn't be right for me to ride a Harley. So,
stop it.
But yeah, it's something that. So just a bit of a teaser. I'm going to be talking to Ross from Ross Wristwatch Love. That's a tongue twister.
Yep.
When I did my Christmas, because price of watches, as I said, is always something that I've been kind of a bit like, especially when you start buying watches from Aliexpress and then you get a micro brand and they're wanting $500 for the watch and you go, well, I can get the same in a Pagani, like sapphire crystal, automatic movement, blah, 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 blah. But then, as I said, LV really opened my eyes to what it actually costs, and the Chinese people, manufacturers and everything, it's all there, so their costs can come way down because anyway.
Yeah.
I was talking to Ross. Shout out to Ross. Ross Wristwatch Love. I can't even say that slow, let alone 5 times fast. But the Christopher Ward watch that I had in, it's $3,000, and I'm going, okay, $3,000's a lot of money, and so it's like I'm trying to learn about why these watches are so expensive. The movement in that watch, to buy the movement alone, is well over 500 Canadian just to get the movement. And they modified.
What movement did they run in there? Is it the ETA?
No, it was a SW 330 Solita that they modded in order to make it work for what they were doing with it. So they added some modifications to the movement. But anyway, that movement retails for almost $500 just the movement to buy it.
Yeah.
But what Ross told me was, compare it to a Seiko 5 or compare it to another watch in your collection, and you'll just get to see what makes it, more valuable. He said something else, which I'm not going to give away now because what he said freaking blew my brain balls right out of there. It just poof. And I thought of, he said that to me. We were just talking on Instagram and doing the video, or not video, the when you can leave an audio message.
Yeah,
and I mean,
a voice note sort of thing.
I stewed about what he said all day at work. I couldn't, and that's. I was just like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna get my watch watch that I really want, because I always have had trouble wrapping my mind around spending that much money on a watch. But now I'm ready.
I get it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a bit of a teaser.
Also, like I said earlier, Chris, I think it's also part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unless you're someone who has got quite a bit of money, which then it becomes a relative thing to how much you've got to what you can spend, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I mean, but generally it's a process, isn't it, in terms of your journey with watches? I feel like that's just how it goes. In terms of how much I'd be comfortable spending now compared to a few years ago, it's massively different.
Yeah.
Massively different. And also my appreciation for why something's worth so much more has changed as well. Because in terms of looking at watches as much as I do, I appreciate small details that most people wouldn't even notice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's also what you're paying for, isn't it? You're paying for those little levels of finishing that some people might not really notice. But when you do notice it, you're like, wow, that is incredible.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it's been I love learning, right? And I love, growing in this. And for the tutor, for the reason of it's available, it's achievable. Rolex, for me, is just not achievable. $20,000 watch. No. It's just, and that's fine. I'm not upset about that or anything like that. It's just, I want to go for something that I know I can do. But anyways,
I think that's sensible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get beyond the watch again. We talked a bit about watches there. So my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know if I heard this from you or where I heard this from, but you used to be a police officer, yes or no?
Yeah, I was in the police. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, just tell me a bit about your career. You're not a police officer now, but just tell us about your what you do for a living and how you make your bones.
I was in the police force for about 3.5 years. It was a great experience. I feel like anyone who has been in the police or they've been in the armed services and stuff, I think the one thing it really gives you is a level of self-discipline in terms of doing what you're supposed to do and being where you're supposed to be and just not needing someone to look over your shoulder and tell you, oh, no, actually, sorry, you need to do this. Because you do what you're supposed to do because it becomes a little bit ingrained in you. So the police was a great experience for me.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, I was a bit of a nightmare. So.
Okay, let's talk about that. What led you to becoming a police officer, and what was the nightmare part?
Just kind of who I was at the time, and I wanted to try and become a person that I wasn't, and I could see myself being something different, and I wanted to set a good example for my little brother. I wanted to set a good example for him, and I wanted to just be be someone that people I care about could look up to. And just be about what you rather than just talking the talk. I want to walk the walk as well. I want to show that actually talk is cheap, innit?
Yeah.
You need to put yourself out there and do it properly.
Yeah. So it sounds like there was a moment when, and we don't have to get into the nitty gritty of it, but you were doing things that maybe were opposite that. What was the moment that you went, okay, I gotta make some change. I gotta be a role model. I gotta be a better person. Like what facilitated that for you?
Just certain close friends of mine ended up going to prison.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't see that in my life. I didn't see my life going there just because at the time I had my mum and my siblings to look after. I had to help my mum look after, so I was thinking, well, if I'm not around, who looks after them? Do you know what I mean? So I was like, I've really got to get my stuff in order.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was a big thing. So
get your shit together, as a lot of us say, eh?
Yeah, it's one of them, innit? Like rather than blame other people, again, like we were talking about earlier, blame other people for what I am or what I'm not doing. I just wanted to sort of grab it by the scruff of the neck and show that anything's achievable. That, like they say, the harder you work, the luckier you get in it. Yeah. And that's life. I think if you put the hard work in anywhere, you'll get some rewards from it.
Yeah.
And I feel like most people that don't put no hard work in want to blame other people for why they don't have the things they feel like they deserve. So I don't like to live like that. I like to put myself out there every day to try and, like, even with the channel, I'll be honest with you. I'll be completely honest. I'm not a very creative person. Like when I first started my YouTube channel, it was very difficult because I don't have all these great ideas and I've never done any real photography, no videography, nothing.
Yeah.
I came from that perspective. So it took me a long time to start being able to put anything coherent together. And it's been a process, man. It's been a real process. And along the way, I've learned an awful lot about myself. I've learned an awful lot about doing things I couldn't do before. And for me, we were talking about earlier about subscribers and stuff. Subscribers are lovely, don't get me wrong. And it's always nice to see that you've got another subscriber. But I feel like all I concentrate on personally is just trying to make my content as good as I can make it for that period of time in my life. I try and make, because like I said, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to produce content that I would like to watch. I try and make it as clear as possible. I try and be as honest as possible. And the content I make now, I look at it probably 6 to 12 months and I'll be like, oh my God. But it's the process, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the learning and growing process.
Yeah. So how old were you when this happened and then you decided to be a police officer? How long does that take to become a police officer?
So in terms of when you apply, in terms of all the tests and the vetting, and it probably took about 1.5 years for it all to go through, especially because I lived in quite not very nice area. So I feel like they even did more diligence on me. And also it probably was a little bit tough because I've never met my dad before. So they probably wanted to try and research whether I did know my dad, who my dad was. And that again probably held things up a little bit.
Okay.
So that was probably a little bit of a stumbling block as well. So it took a little while for all my checks to come through.
Okay. And so when you were, you were a police officer for 3.5 years.
3.5, yeah. So
is it true that English police officers don't carry guns?
Not generally. No, they'll have, a lot of them now have something they consider a firearm in, like a taser. They consider that to be, so you got to have like firearms training for that. But no, I think you'd have like a CS gas again, which is something you got to be. They kind of use, but now they wouldn't have. You have special police officers that have handguns. Because obviously over here,
it blows me away that that's true. Because I mean, obviously in Canada, it's much different in the States. The States has, they love their guns. In Canada, it's difficult for a regular Joe like me to acquire a handgun. It takes a long time to get a handgun. Now I could get a hunting license and buy a rifle, but a handgun, no. I can't just go get a handgun. The process can take up to 2 years to get approved for a handgun in Canada, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, fellow Canadians, but it could be a year or two before you get a handgun. So, but everywhere that I go in Canada, United States, police have guns, and you think, yeah, they got guns for a reason. And then I heard in England they don't have guns. I'm like,
no. What you find is in the sort of out account in London itself, like the central London, you got City of London police, and they tend to be more. They tend to have our firearms more because of the fact that they're kind of dealing in an area that's probably more high risk. In terms of if there was anything going to happen, people would probably they'd probably want to be in central London because of all the landmarks and stuff. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's probably a bit more of a risk involved with that. But in terms of, I work for the Metropolitan Police, and firearms, you could go on to do firearms, and that was something I definitely thought about. My time, I thought about maybe going into that sort of thing. But I'm quite happy with what I'm doing now, to be honest. I think I mentioned before, see, I work as a driving examiner now. So I take people on their driving tests. So every day I take 7 people on their tests to see if they're ready to pass their driving test. And some are at the standard, some are not, and that's just how it goes.
So so you don't do driver training, or is that part of it, or you just do the exam? They've already done their training, and they're going to you.
Yeah, so they would have already been with a driving instructor. They'd have had an instructor teaching them and trying to teach them the fundamentals and stuff. And then I'll take them out for sort of 30 to 40 minutes and just observe how they deal with different challenges and stuff on the road, and just to see if they're safe, to be honest, because it's in all of our interest to make sure that they're safe, because we got family that cross the road and all these other things, and we just want to make sure that they're safe. We're not looking for a Formula One driver. We're just looking for someone who, do you know what I mean? We're just looking, for me, I'm just looking for someone who can get me from A to B safely. And if that's what they can do, then by all means, it's all good.
So when you transitioned from being, did you go into driver